Hi, everyone. Harry here to talk about Mike Pence and his decision to throw in the towel, not push things on appeal, and show up to testify in the grand jury investigating January 6th. Okay, to review, now recall he got subpoenaed and he came up with this newfangled theory that at the time he said he really needed to try to vindicate the Constitution. I'm sure he had never even heard of it, but it was under the speech or debate clause, which is a protection that legislators have. But the Constitution says that the vice president is the president of the Senate. So he says, I have this important role in the Senate. And on that basis, he brought the claim. Now, this was in tandem with Trump bringing a claim saying Pence can't testify because of executive privilege. So Pence's claim was the speech or debate clause, and he was pretty sanctimonious about it. You know, he said, I have nothing to hide, but I have a constitution to uphold. And so he takes it to the district court, the new district court chief judge, who we're going to be hearing a fair bit, is going to start fielding the different actions or motions from the grand jury. And remember, grand jury proceedings are secret. So we only get a glimmer of what those decisions are. But we know the decision that the new chief judge, Jeb Boasberg, made was basically against Pence and said, look, maybe you have speech or debate clause protection when you are acting in your role as president of the Senate, but you can't you can't use that to shield testimony about the illegality of Trump. That's the way he put it as far as it's been reported in the press. Probably it's more, so it either was you have some, but it would have to yield to talk about allegations of criminal behavior. That's the general principle that in the executive privilege realm that comes from United States versus Nixon. Or maybe he said you can have a shield for your role in president of the Senate, but not anything else. That either way, that gives Smith anything and everything he needs. Nobody cares about Pence's testimony about when he's presiding over the Senate on January 6th. That was, in fact, live for all the world to see. What matters are his one-on-one conversations with Trump. Well, he's got a lot of things to say, but the most important and among the most important testimony in all of the January 6th stuff is conversations that he alone can speak to. First and foremost, he has a couple conversations, including a blistering phone call on January 6th morning between Trump and him. There are people on Trump's side, including Ivanka, who testify what's going on from their end, and it is totally incendiary. Trump is calling him a wimp. He's calling him a pussy. I'll say that word because they're going to make Pence say that word in the grand jury, I believe. He says he made a mistake 4 years ago, and he just totally excoriates him. Pence is the guy, though, who can really testify to that conversation. Then there's another in the wings of the Oval Office that is of a similar nature, where I think Pence alone hears that one. And we know that they have lunch together weekly that supposedly continues throughout the post-election period, and God knows what was said there. So the conversations one-on-one with Trump that Pence and Pence alone can testify to are going to be, especially as we get nearer and nearer to January 6th, are going to show in gory and vulgar and nasty, churlish detail Trump's total campaign to just bash Pence into breaking the law, right? Into saying that on January 6th that not certifying the vote for the states and then sending it back. And what is that? That is quite plainly an attempt to obstruct the January 6th proceeding. That's one crime, or to commit a fraud against the United States by undoing the election. Those are I say that because those are the two sort of federal crimes that Smith will be especially investigating on as they go to January 6th itself. Okay, so now we knew that Pence had come out of the box and said, "I was going to defend speech or debate all the way to the end." And after he lost this decision in the district court, he suggested he was going to take it to the Court of Appeals, Supreme Court if necessary, a constitution to vindicate. Somehow he folds up his tent and announces, "Okay, I'm going to not try to appeal." Now, you could try to see some lawyerly reasons here for that, like, maybe his lawyer, who's an excellent lawyer, might have told him, "This is about as good as you're going to get." But I don't buy it, because the state of play is he has to give it all up. And to the extent he was before, being driven by needing to show the Trump MAGA faithful that he was for them all the way as much as he could do. He's not doing that anymore. He could still be fighting in the Court of Appeals. Moreover, and I've mentioned this before, because the speech or debate clause is novel, he would have a real shot, not at winning. At the end of the day, he's got to testify to these things, but of getting a Court of Appeals or even the Supreme Court to say, we need to weigh in and just speak to the specific line that the district court drew. Maybe we want to tweak it a little bit, et cetera. In other words, of stalling, Trump's favorite tactic, and maybe getting out of testifying altogether. He decided not to. So there's some reason, of course, I personally don't buy, and most people I know don't buy, his sort of sanctimony about the Constitution, and that's what he's doing there. So possibly something about the, seal being broken on the whole notion of Trump indictments with the Bragg action. Or maybe, and huddling with his advisors, he realizes there's just no way to the nomination. There's probably no way anyway, but no way to the presidential nomination that continues to so forcefully defend Trump. A new candidate who doesn't defend Trump is now in the pool, Asa Hutchinson. Maybe he's decided Pence, needs to, break ranks with Trump, even if it alienates the Trump faithful, because that's his only way around to burnish his image as the, non January 6th figure and the like. But he could have gone forward. He said he was going to go forward, and bam, he is not going to go forward. And that means that he is going to be, showing up and raising his right hand within a week or two, and that's a really strong arrow in the quiver of Jack Smith. It's going to be killer testimony and really add to the January 6th investigations. But they are different investigations. Some are about January 6th itself, and maybe Smith is even zeroing in on the ability to bring these. So this is one of 3 or 4 really big victories that Smith has garnered in the last few weeks, bringing him much closer in Mar-a-Lago and even in January 6th itself, especially with a parallel ruling that I'll be talking about in a different discussion with you guys, having to do with with Mark Meadows and many other advisors and the rejection of their claims for executive privilege. Okay, so Vice President Mike Pence, who dodged the January 6th committee with no real justification at all, who promised to go to the hilt on the speech or debate clause claim, is in fact saying uncle and getting ready to testify, and he's got some really vivid stuff to supply that we haven't heard completely. And that's a whole nother Collateral Benefit, we're filling in chunks of the historical record that the January 6th committee wasn't able to. So big news when he testifies. Other than leaks, we won't hear it exactly. There probably will be some leaks, but that transcript will one day come out, and it's going to be some very interesting reading, his testimony before the grand jury. All right, so stay tuned. Smith is really, cooking on blasting on all cylinders and making great strides. That, along with everything else that's happening, is really, I think, making all kinds of trouble on all kinds of fronts for the former president, twice impeached and now indicted Donald Trump. Okay, so we'll follow this as closely as we can, given that it's grand jury, and so I'll be back to tell you about it after he's come and gone. Until then, talk to you later. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.